What's up, everyone? All right, so in today's episode, I'm going to break down my trades from the morning. Today was all about going with the flow. You remember about a month ago when one of you guys said I was dressed like a lava lamp? Well, it inspired me to actually get this lava lamp t-shirt, so thank you for that. As I put it on today, I remind myself it's the last day of March. Let's just go with the flow. Don't try to be a hero today. Look, if you got a couple stocks that are hot, by all means, step up to the plate. But if it's not happening, go easy. So I actually planned this morning that I'd be going a little bit easy, especially when I saw that the overall market was gapping down a little bit. I thought, all right, we've still got this headwind, so it's kind of like swimming against the current. You know, you got a river and you're swimming upstream. It's just not as easy, right? So that's the context of the overall market right now, but didn't stop me from having a pretty decent day. I'm sitting right now up $7,194.15. I traded one stock. I think it was 3, maybe 4 trades on it. We'll break it down as we jump onto the screen share and get into the charts. And then sure enough, MLGO squeezes up just after the open. But the problem here for me on this one is, as I said in my weekly recap or my game plan that I uploaded yesterday, that we have this divergence of increasing price, decreasing volume. The spreads are getting bigger. The risk is getting higher. And I just don't want to walk into a boom, 50 cents, 75 cent share red candle. And I know that could happen so easily. So today I took a breath. I said, you know what? Get green. Let's just try to put March into the history books. It hasn't been a month to write home about. I'm not going to call my mom and be like, guess what happened? March. No. Now, of course, I'm going to call her anyways. I have to, listen, guys, if you're not calling your moms, it's a problem. Call your moms. Now, so I call my mom and I say, I had an okay month, but it was nothing. You know what, let's just get back on track. Now I feel bad because some of you guys don't have moms. Now, I'm saying that because I'm thinking about my dad. It would have been his 80th birthday on Friday. And so now I've really taken a turn for the worse here. This isn't, now I have at this point, I'm at a fork in the road. I often find myself here when I'm doing these recaps. Do I just start over or do I proceed forward? Well, there's an old saying that the only path forward is through. Sometimes you just got to get through it. So, of course, I could just start over. But no, we're just going to get through it. Okay, so jumping onto the screen share here. MLGO, this is the one that made a big move. And as you can see here, ascending resistance. Now, I drew this trend line based on the connection here and here. And this is a trend line that's been tested once, twice, 3 times, almost 4, almost 5, and then kind of above it, below it today. And then I had another trend line that I drew right here connecting the high of today or 2 days ago with the high from a few days before that. So as I looked at it this morning, it sort of tested right to that level. And I was like, yup, we've got resistance. Then we kind of come up to here and we broke through it. We went all the way to $24 a share. But, like I said, as I was looking at this on the 10-second chart, this was where I was like, yeah, look at that. And then boom, you get that rejection. Now it rallies back up and then it rejects again. And these are big rejections from 25.50 down to 22.50. I mean, this is really tough stuff. So anyways, this one I didn't trade. I stayed with discipline. I said, I may not make money, but at least I have my dignity. So I kept that intact today. And so the stock that I traded this morning, well, if we go back to the kind of beginning of the day, when I was first looking at scans, I saw ICCT gapping up. Now, it's got 174 million shares of volume, and this actually goes directly to the point that someone made recently. They said, Ross, why don't you just filter your scans to not see these, since you obviously wouldn't trade them because it's too cheap? And I said, I hear that, but on the other hand, I want to have a good picture of what's moving in the market. I don't want to have my blinders on because, sometimes you lose context. So if I'm like, oh, this stock, MLGO is the most obvious stock in the whole market. Maybe it is through my very filtered view, but big picture, you've got ICCT here that has a ton more volume, and maybe there were others. So for my top gainers scanner, this is just sorting the top gainers in the entire market. I think as long as they've got like 5,000 shares of volume. So it's casting a pretty wide net. Now, of course, I've got the filters, or I've got the columns colored to help draw my eye to things that are more significant to me. But this is a pretty broad scan, but it is helpful just to see big picture what's moving. So when I saw ICCT moving, I thought, oh boy, it's penny stock mania. The penny stocks are what's in focus today. I don't typically do well on these. what should I do? And I decided, of course, not to trade it, but to be more cautious when I saw something else popping up, because I thought it's going to take a lot to knock ICCT off its high horse of being the leading gainer on the entire day, right? So, in fact, no other stock has been able to do it, except for this reverse split, but that doesn't really count. So ICCT, no trades on that court. This one's interesting. It's an 83 million share float, comes out with news, biotech stock, goes from $50 to $5 a share all the way up to over $100. Incredible. But larger spreads, higher priced, not easy to manage risk on, no trades. CTOR, 42 million shares of volume below $1. NWTG, this one came up and some of you guys started trading and I said, well, hold on 1 second, fellas, and ladies, of course. This is a golf company. It's not a biotech. It's not a Chinese company. Can we really, now, I just don't think it's worth it. You know, it just doesn't feel like the right sector. And although it popped from $1.6240, I didn't touch it. Came all the way back down, popped back up, not for really any good reason, is back down now. So I didn't touch that one. It's the wrong sector. It just doesn't make sense. Now, there could be a point where it gets squeezed and starts to work, but I just don't really think so. So that one was off the list. MLGO, already talked about that. Blue, this was on the watch list yesterday that I uploaded, and you did get a nice breakout on this from 440 up to 520, but I didn't trade it. The volume was a little bit lighter, wasn't as obvious, and I mentioned the float being just a little higher at 9.5 million shares. So what did I trade? Well, I ended up trading DOMH. DOMH, this hit the scanners early this morning, and honestly, it's kind of a bummer. It had news that came out, it pops up, and this is how I traded it. Let's look at the 10-second chart. So I spent a lot of the day being patient, sitting, and waiting. But happy to jump in once we got something that was working. And that right there was a really clean micro pullback. Unfortunately, I missed it. Where did I get in? I got in right here on this micro pullback. So it popped up just over 6, it dipped down, and I bought right in there at about 580. I bought 4,000 shares, I doubled to 8,000 shares. Not a huge position. It ends up going up to a high of 650, sorry, 580 is where I got in, 590, right around there. It goes up to 650, and I took my profit as it popped up there for about $2,400 of profit. So about 30, 40 cents, nothing crazy. It dips down here, it dips down a little bit more, and I did a dip trade down here. It bounces back up, not bad. And then right through here, I took this trade right in here for the break back over 6, and we got squeezed up to 620 and all the way up to 630. I was hoping we would retest the highs. We didn't, and so I got out with profit. It ends up pulling back, dipping back down, and just going sideways. And when it broke right here, I said, that's it. It's over. And so if you were in this trade, now my last trade was right in here, so I wasn't in during this area. But let's say you were. When it breaks here, it broke pretty quickly and suddenly. And so all of a sudden people might be like, oh, should I hold or should I average down? And next thing you know, you're on the backside of the move and it's not recovering. So you've got to be really disciplined about cutting your losses, number 2. But number 1, if it's not squeezing, there's no point in holding it because you're just exposing yourself to the risk of getting caught in a flush. So break out or bail out. If it's not squeezing, I bail out. And so for this one, although, you know, I got some trades here, because it couldn't get all the way back to the highs, I bailed out. So this one was fine right here. We got some opportunities on it. It was just a bummer. It didn't hold up. But again, like I said, there were some other stocks that were gaining attention that people were more focused on. And so that didn't really help things. So DOMH, that was the one I traded. Now we did have MYSZ that popped up on the scans. It's cheaper. Had the 200 moving average at about 250. Kind of popped up after hours, pulled back, popped up pre-market, dipped down, then it rips at the open up to 3. I just didn't want, it felt, I don't know, it just felt a little too cheap, very thickly traded. I just didn't think it was going to work, and I left it alone. So I left some money on the table on that one, but I don't mind leaving some money on the table when I'm walking away with profit. So by the way, those of you guys who have been tuning in here on YouTube for quite some time, let me remind you, if you go over to our website and click join now, you will see that we've got our anniversary sale going on right now on the Warrior Starter and Warrior Pro memberships. So these will end a week from tomorrow. So heads up, you've got a week and a day before the sale ends. But these are special discounts and they're bundles that we put together on our Warrior Starter, Warrior Pro memberships. And the bundles include access to some of the software that we've created. So our simulator, our scanners, the charts, the newsfeed,